scuba gear. So go ahead.
I don't know if I have an answer.
Well, I'd probably go upstairs and find out what's going on, and you know, I like that. Again, we hadn't seen that many movies about really almost impossible to vanquish creatures, and there is kind of a, you know, it's what is the Shakespeare line about the gods? It's like we treat us like wanton flies. They play. It's like we are their sport or something like that. Yeah, and that's a little about what's going on there. It's just it's a greater power than we have known, and you know, we at this point I agree with the first comment, which was that we deserve to get the living hell kicked out of us for what we did. And I look, I'm an eternal atomic paranoiac, depending on who's in the White House, and so I'm getting ready for a nice long spell of deep paranoia, and I'm going to go try to find an underwater cave myself.
We have about 5 minutes, so a couple more questions.
This in the blue here, you always come to all my films. I recognize you. Please. In the blue right here, yeah.
Thank you. My name is Salim. The question I have, I feel like would be most pointed towards Michael, but if anybody else thinks they could interject, that would be great. So, an interesting thing about Honda Ishiro that I know of is that he was not only a contemporary, he was a collaborator specifically of Kurosawa Akira, to the degree that I believe Akira and Mifune Toshiro, they reunited after Honda's funeral, and upon the later end of Kurosawa's career, as he was going blind, Honda effectively acted as directing courier for Kurosawa from Ran on downwards to the end of his career. So the question that I'm getting to is, do you feel in the amount of films that Honda has directed for Godzilla, including this one, of course, there is some alignment aesthetically or thematically between the two filmmakers or any other post-war Japanese filmmaker of the time?
Raise your hand. Ask a question.
Oh, thank you. That's a great question, and I'm not a film studies, so I'm not really I don't have the answer for it. And I was learning from him. I don't know much about, and because he is big figure after this film, but I don't hear much about him. So I was always wondering what he was doing afterwards. So it's nice to know.
You're gonna know this because my memory's faulty. Was this Toho was making two films with basically the same ensemble of actors? It wasn't the other one a Kurosawa film?
1954, Seven Samurai also came out.
No, yeah, it was a different film. Yeah, I don't know if it's Kurosawa or not, but I think you can say that they're. Yeah, I mean, they're simpatico without being the same type at all. But there's something about, and I wouldn't describe much of Kurosawa as documentary-like, which is the most generalized, non-specific phrasing that everybody overuses. But I do love how this film sets out to tell its simple story. It's very close to kind of a plain spoken documentary with a lot of sort of flourishes that are more Hollywood narrative, white, you know, things like that. But there's something about the way it tries to kind of treat it as real, you know, and happening that may have a little nod to that, a shared sensibility. Yeah.
We have time for one more question. Oh my goodness. Holly, why don't you pick? You're near. Or who has the mic?
You pick and I'll run. Whoever you like. Oh my gosh. No one at the top has been asked yet, so I'm gonna go to you because it's easier for me. So
thank you for putting this all together. So much of science fiction has to do with the perils of corporate science, and particularly the films you mentioned, whether it's Jaws, Alien, Terminator, even Avatar. My question is, can movies be made allegorical as the one we just watched, whether that is about climate change or nuclear disaster or even the challenges that we pose to each other as human beings.
If it has a superhero in it, yes. I think it's just hard to make an allegorical film that is commercial and that people will go to the theaters for. Please, someone prove me wrong.
So, spoiler alert, this year's Godzilla, next year is the 40th anniversary of Studio Ghibli. And I'm just gonna say that Studio Ghibli does a great job at this, as most of those films are strong allegories for different environmental and political strife. So, I think they can still be made, especially in anime, because that makes it so much easier, right? You can just dream as hard as you want. What do you all think?
Well, if it's streaming, probably. But if you're looking for something that people will go to in the box office, I'm just skeptical, and Michael can tell me I'm wrong.
No, I won't. I'll tell you privately.
Oh, private. Okay. All right.
Can I interject? So because I'm not actually directly addressing to the question, but you mentioned superhero.
Yes.
But most superheroes in the United States, especially comic books, they were empowered by coming into contact with radioactive materials. So in that sense, it's very like, you know,
That's why I
in
avoid
the sort of
spiders,
a
yeah.
bigger range of nuclear films to me. And I want to kind of go back to Mr. Grady's, the first person who threw a question for us. And I think his comment was so insightful, reminding me of Frankenstein. I mean, Frankenstein is the doctor's name, so it's not a creature, but you know.
Your excuse. Yeah.
So yeah, I think very much like this is a kind of a version of Frankenstein, like kind of accusing us of what we've done.
I think that's all we have time for. Let's thank our panelists.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. And if the conversation wants to continue, if our panelists are available to take the convo in the hallway, we ask you just go out into the lobby area because there is a screening